What's up, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of From the Lions Cove podcast. I'm your host, Marcelo, and welcome to Season 4. That's right, we're already on Season 4 of From the Lions Cove podcast. Thank you for all the love and support. I'm very blessed and very thankful. But to start off this season, I have one of my best friends, one of my good friends, my first ever college friend, my boy Toby. Toby, welcome to the podcast today, brother.
Cello, thank you for having me, bro. I'm excited to talk some hoops.
Yeah, so Toby, obviously I've known for a long time, known him for 4 years since the first day of college, and the one thing me and him share in common is hoops. We share a lot of other things in common, but obviously hoops is the main one for sure. Me and Toby obviously both love the game of basketball, and Toby, me and him were talking the one day, and he's like, you should have me on your podcast and talk about hoops. And you know what? Toby definitely has a high basketball IQ. I'm not sure if he could beat me in a one-on-one, but Toby definitely has the IQ for it. Yeah, I can't wait to go through all these questions, and it's going to be a great episode, brother.
Appreciate it, bro. Yeah, dude, you've been having all these people on, talking basketball, talking sports, and you've known me for this long, and you know how much I love basketball, how much I love talking about it. So I've been waiting for you to invite me. Never happened. So I was like, screw it. I'm just going to ask you myself, when are you going to have me on to talk hoops? And you're like, fine, I'll have you on. So I kind of forced my way onto here, but here we are anyway.
Well, yeah, listen, I was going to have you on either way, Toby. Come on. But what a great time to do this podcast, because obviously we're in the middle of the NBA Finals. The Thunder tied the series 1-1 after last night's win over the Pacers. So what stood out to you about their performance in OKC?
So the first thing that I want to mention about this series is that game one, the Thunder played for the majority of the game pretty good basketball. I mean, they were up double digits by the second quarter. By the halftime, you're like, this is going to be one of those games. The Thunder, the entire playoffs, have lost one game at home before game one. And that was game one against the Denver Nuggets. Every other game, they completely obliterate teams at home. Like game two against Denver, they won that game by like 33 points. They blew them out in game 7. This is a team that does not lose at home. So the fact that they lost that game in game one, I think some things that I wanted to point out is, first, Shea had 38 points in game one, but it wasn't like a pretty 38 points. Like the shots seemed a little bit forced. He was taking a lot of shots. You know, usually Shea's a pretty efficient. He'll go 14 of 24 from the field, have 38 points, and then go to the free throw a bunch of times. That was not the fact of what happened in 38. A lot of those shots seemed forced. So in that way, the game was, a little bit unsettling. Chad had a pretty bad game, and they immediately kind of surrendered to the Pacers and adapted very quick on. They rolled out a starting lineup with the two bigs all playoffs of Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren, and then immediately 30 minutes before tip-off, they take out Isaiah Hartenstein out of the starting lineup to put in Cason Wallace in there to be a starter, to go smaller, because again, they feared that matchup with Pascal Siakam, thinking that they would have a better time guarding Siakam with a more, perimeter-oriented defender instead of having Isaiah Hartenstein or Chet Holmgren to defend him. So immediately you're showing the Pacers your cards, saying, we're already adjusting to you. And the OKC Thunder were like a plus 550 favorite in the series, or plus 750, something crazy like that. So I thought that was a mistake to just, and then they, throughout the game, didn't play those two together at all. And those two bigs have great chemistry together. Isaiah Hartenstein is a very good passing big man. The defense with those two on the floor, especially in those minutes when they put Toppin and Siakam out there, or Toppin alone at 5, you got to play the double big men there. And you saw it also in the rebounding difference there with OKC, lost the rebounding battle by a significant margin in game 1. So going into game 2, the things that I was looking to see was a better performance by Chet, who only had 6 points in game 1 and looked a little, sloppy, and to play those two bigs a lot more, and then also a better performance, a more efficient all-around, play with the flow of the game that we're used to from Shea. And we got all of those things from the Thunder in game 2. So it was a great Shea performance. The bigs played well. When you have Aaron Wiggins hitting 5 threes, that team is pretty unstoppable. They are so deep. Aaron Wiggins would start on almost every other team in the league. So those are the things that I really looked forward to watching in that game, was to see how, settled Shea was going to be in game 2, and to see, someone like a Chet Holmgren who had a decent game finally after a pretty bad game 1. So those are a few things that I noticed in the game. There are other obvious things that we can get into, but those are the big main concepts that I saw in game 2 that I liked from the Thunder.
Yeah, and one thing from the Thunder that really stood out to me was Alex Caruso.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I watch Caruso, he always makes a 3. Like, he is just like knockdown shooter. He's been super efficient. Obviously, he's known for his defense.
Yeah.
But 20 ball last night in the finals, pretty impressive.
20 ball was great. Alex Caruso is probably one of my favorite favorite players in the league to watch. The guy is 6'4", and he is an insanely amazing defender. I mean, first off, this OKC defense is all-time great, and they're just swarming. They get in the passing lanes, and Alex Caruso is a big part of that. Alex Caruso, in against the Denver Nuggets, was guarding Nikola Jokic and frustrating Nikola Jokic because he just gets up under him, and then they try to get him. He tries to, Jokic tries to get him, posted up here, and gets him on his back, and then somehow Caruso gets a way to like pick the pass out and get under him, and he does it a lot. He's a great defender. He knows when to cut. He's a high IQ player. He's a great watch for sure.
Yeah, and then Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, obviously, kind of had not the best game. Had a lot of turnovers. Every time he would drive, it just seemed like the Thunder would just rip the ball away from him.
Yeah, and that's they're the best at getting in those passing lanes, picking passes. Lou Dort is the best perimeter defender in the league. If I had to vote this year, I know obviously our guy Evan Mobley won Defensive Player of the Year, but I thought Lou Dort was the best defender in the league. There was I think he had a 2-month stretch this season where no one scored 30 points on him. So he's the real deal. Tyrese Halliburton, I think that's something interesting about this Pacers run is that Tyrese Halliburton has now been kind of catapulted into this elite superstar, position where people view him in that way. Tyrese Halliburton really isn't that. He's a great player. He's probably top 15, but there's a stark difference between someone like a Tyrese Halliburton and a Donovan Mitchell or a Jalen Brunson. Let's not even talk about Giannis. Tyrese Halliburton, there's an interesting stat that I was looking at for this podcast. It's player usage rate. It's how much the player has the ball in his hands, essentially percentage of the game. The last five finals MVPs have a usage rate of at least 27%. Jaylen Brown was on the lower end at 27%. Most players who win finals MVPs, so to give people kind of like what player usage percentage means, if you have a player usage percentage of above a 25%, that means you are most likely the primary creator, the offensive engine on your team. A usage rate of 20% or such around that range means that you are usually the secondary creator. So someone like, for example, Luka Doncic in last year's finals had a usage rate of 36.8%, which is that's excessive.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So 36.8% of the game when the Mavericks were on offense, he had the ball in his hand, which is a lot. So someone like that is a lot. Someone like LeBron, when last time the Lakers won in 2020, he had a 33%, which is a little bit better. So Tyrese Halliburton's usage rate for this season is 21.6%. That means if you're just looking at his stats, he is more of a secondary. He plays more as a secondary offensive option rather than a first offensive option, which is what makes this Pacers run so unique, is that their best player has a pretty, relatively speaking, low player usage percentage, which shows the type of player he is. Tyrese Halliburton is a point guard, a pure point guard. He likes to play more passive. He doesn't look to score at all first, but in order for the Pacers to actually have a chance, I thought yesterday, there were times where he was just looking off, drives. He was settling for really deep threes when he didn't need to. He was a little bit sloppy with the ball, throwing it from half court to Siakam, who thought he had someone sealed. Passes like that are not going to work. In order for them to win this, he needs to be a threat off the dribble. He needs to, make that Thunder defense guard him like a scorer, because when he's off ball, Lou Dort is denying him the ball, not letting him get the ball, and when he's on the ball, he's not looking to score, and that's just because of this Thunder defense is very frustrating. Game 1, he had the game winner, but he was not having a good game. Your best player cannot have 14 points, and I know he had 17 yesterday, but a lot of those came when the game was over. So he's just going to look to be more aggressive from the beginning. That's the one thing I'm looking from Tyrese. Yeah, what performance yesterday is not going to cut it. If they want to be a threat in this series the rest of the way, he has to be more of a aggressor. He has to be able to take it off the dribble and go to the hole. He has to be able to not just look to be the passer and to get everyone else involved, but also to score.
Yeah, no. I 100% agree. This kind of leads us to the next question. So Game 3 is this Wednesday in Indiana.
Yeah.
So what adjustments do you think both teams need to make, and what players do you think will step up the most?
So the thing that I noticed with the Pacers, other than the Tyrese Halliburton passing this, is that they are daring some of the OKC Thunder wings to shoot. Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, Aaron Wiggins, Cason Wallace. What's happening is whoever is defending those guys, because those guys are usually in the corners on a pick and roll with Shea, either Chet or Isaiah or Jalen Williams. And when Shea is collapsing middle to go into a shot, the guy who's guarding Cason Wallace, Alex Caruso, Lou Dort in the corner shifts away, leaving them. If it's Andrew Nembhard who's on them, Andrew Nembhard is shifting to go double Shea and just completely leaving them wide open. So that is an interesting strategy that they're using to try and slow Shea down, get the ball out of Shea's hand. But what you're doing is you're also allowing Thunder to hit a lot of corner threes there. And I don't know know if you're watching, a lot of those buckets from Alex Caruso came out of corner three. A lot of those shots, they're daring these guys to shoot. Now, with this Thunder offense, it may be the way to go because role players usually don't play as well on the road. So I don't know if they're going to get away from that, but that's something I would look at, is to see what they're doing with those guys that are going to keep leaving them there to them to shoot, or are they going to play a little bit more aggressive on those corners, making sure those corner threes, because the corner three is the closest to the rim, so it's essentially should be the easiest to make. Now the angle might be a little bit weird, but that's something that I would look at for them. The other thing that I think that the Pacers need to do a better job at, and this comes back to Tyrese Halliburton, is that the few buckets that Tyrese Halliburton did have, usually Lou Dort is guarding him, but Miles Turner will set his screen, or whoever is guarding Shea, whoever Shea is guarding now. Shea, sometimes they put him on Aaron Nesmith. They try to hide Shea. Shea's not exactly a terrible defender, but he's the worst defender of the group that they put out there for an all-time defense. Is that you got to attack Shea more, and you got to put him into more switches, because they are switching those. Get Tyrese, get Lou Dort off of Tyrese, and get Shea on him, and allow Tyrese to go to work against Shea. So I would put more pressure on Shea defensively. I don't think we saw that enough, and even if there was a switch again, Tyrese was too passive with a Shea Gilgeous-Alexander on him. So I would look to do that. The other thing I think is interesting is that you got to get Pascal Siakam more shots. I'm thinking put him up in the middle at the free throw line, because again, the problem is these guys, you can't post them up because they get in the passing lanes, and you think you have someone sealed, and then you try to give him that entry pass there, and then it's just like a turnover the other way. So you got to find a way to get Pascal Siakam the ball more in positions where he's able to be a threat to score, because Siakam, if you give him at the top of the key and tell him to dribble in, then he collapse. So finding some way to get Siakam the ball closer to the rim, I think, is essential, because the one weak link that they can target is that they really don't have anyone to guard Siakam. I mean, Jalen Williams would have to take on that responsibility. I mean, someone like that's the reason why they're not starting Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren together, because they just don't think either of those guys guard Siakam. So finding a way to get Siakam in a better scoring position, as well as attacking Shea off the dribble, because again, everyone else in that perimeter defense is insane. You'll have the easiest time against Shea. Also, try to get him, rough him up, get him a little bit tired. I think those are the adjustments I think Indiana needs to make. And if you're Thunder, you're playing with house money. You're the favorite here by a lot. You won 80 games this year. You shouldn't really adjust from what you had. You played really good game 1 and game 2, and you just got unlucky in game 1.
Like some players, I think that need to step up big time for the Pacers. Obviously, Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith. Those two are your consistent bucket getters. They will win you. They'll win you the game if Tyrese Halliburton is not stepping up.
The Thunder got some good looks there from three. Just their guys were not hitting the threes. Obi Toppin hit 5 threes in game 1, and it was 1 of 5 in game 2. Aaron Nesmith, he had some threes by the end of the game, but it was over by then. He's got to shoot better. Nembhard, these guys got to be able to shoot the ball better from 3 if they have any chance of winning. And now in Indiana, that crowd is going to be going crazy. I'm sure the role players will play better, but that's something else that, the role players, they just got to shoot the 3 better. They got to be threats from out there.
Yeah, and then obviously I think Aaron Wiggins needs more playing time in that series. Yeah. I mean, that game yesterday he had was incredible. Yeah. Just to come off the bench, get buckets like that. I mean,
so Pat Riley had this famous saying that is used throughout NBA circles, which is in the playoffs, you play 8, but you trust 7. Both these teams are insanely deep. That's what makes these teams unique. They're going deep in their bench. Like Henrich Williams is playing for Thunder. You have guys, Isaiah Joe still playing. You have guys like Thomas Bryant and Ben Shepherd who are coming in and playing minutes. Right now, if I'm the Pacers, I'm going 8 deep right now. Thomas Bryant, fun story. He should not be playing in the game 3 in the NBA Finals at this point. You're going 5, then you're going Toppin. Mathurin, I think, is a key. Mathurin is one of the only players on the Pacers team that feels like they can athletically at least match up with the athleticism of the Thunder. That's a big guy. I would keep an eye out in game 3 for Mathurin. I think he's gonna have a pretty big game 3. He's comfortable out there athletically. He can defend, and when you're going up against a Thunder team that's athletic, you need guys that can match that.
Obviously, me and you both being Cavs fans, they had a disappointing end to their historic season, an incredible season. So how did you react to the loss, and do you think that the team has what it takes to win next season, or do you think we need to trade for a player like Giannis?
So there are 3 options here for the Cavs. Cavs can run it back, which I think they should do. This is a team. If you look at the East next year, it is going to be weak. The Celtics are knocked out next year. You don't have to worry about the Celtics. You have Indiana, of course, and they have some big decisions to make. Miles Turner is going to be a free agent. They're going to have to pay him a lot of money to keep him. Then again, this isn't the overpowered super team. This is a team that is beatable. The Knicks, again, are going to have a lot of questions. They got to find a head coach. We'll see what happens with Cat. There's been a lot of trade rumors about him. That team is also very beatable. I believe the Cleveland Cavaliers would have beat the New York Knicks in a conference finals. The Orlando Magic are young, but they're not going to be, they're beatable as well. They're going to be better next year again. But you're also probably going to have to look at if the Cavs Ty Jerome is probably out. He's probably going to get paid big time money, and as a second neighboring team, we're not going to be able to afford him. Craig Porter Jr. I think can step up in that role anyway. But if I'm the Cavs, you won 60 games this year. You won 60 games. That's difficult to do. I understand it was a disappointing end to the season. We had guys injured. I would just run it back. There's no reason we should not run it back. We have a good team. I really believe Donovan Mitchell is that guy. I really, 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 really high on Mobley. I think Evan Mobley will have a better offensive season next year. I think there's still points to unlock with Evan Mobley where he can be a better offensive player. I would run it back. I don't think blowing it up or trading Darius Garland or, I've heard a lot of people talk about you need to blow up the backcourt. I completely disagree when you have two dynamic offensive guards like this. I just don't think you blow it up when you have an anchor in Mobley as a defender. Don't blow it up. I would run it back. I give this team another shot at it. The second option, of course, is then maybe if you want to make one minor trade, would be Jared Allen. I think Jared Allen is the odd man out. I think Mobley at the center would work. I think 2 years ago when we played Boston in the second round, Jared Allen was out and Mobley played the center, and it looked pretty good. I think you could unlock some more things with Mobley at the center position. And sometimes Jared Allen has been, it's been another year where he's been pretty disappointing in the playoffs. He has the famous quote, "The lights were too bright" a few years ago. You could look to see trading him for a wing. Maybe that's someone like Cam Johnson, Herb Jones. Trade him for a wing. That's one. If you want to switch out the vibe with the team, I think that's what you do. And of course, the third thing is if you can get Giannis, you trade for Giannis. If you can get him, you get. That means you're probably gonna have to say goodbye to Evan Mobley and Darius Garland, or one of the two. But you do it because Giannis Antetokounmpo is the second best player in the league. He is a ferocious defender. He is a once in a lifetime generational player. And if you have a duo of Donovan Mitchell and Giannis Antetokounmpo, you are the favorite for the East next year. So you do it if you can get that. If you don't, I keep at least Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and Donovan Mitchell together, and I run it back.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, me and my dad talk about it all the time, but if the Cavs won that game too, the series would have been so different. We would have had that momentum, going into Indiana. Yeah. I mean, even though we already won, I think we won that game one in Indiana, right?
The game 3, that's the one we won.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we would have had just all that momentum going into game 3 and then game 4, and boom. I think we would have been up 3-1 coming back home.
Yeah, I mean, the momentum shifted. That was a bad loss. I mean, game 1, we're in the New York series with Tyrese Halliburton hit that. I would argue if he didn't hit that shot, the Knicks have a better shot of winning. It's just this team has had an unprecedented run to the finals. Tyrese Halliburton is 4 for 4 in game-winning shots, which is unheard of. It's inexplicable. This team just doesn't give up the pace that they play at. It's just, they try to turn every play into a fast break. It's just like the way they play. It's so unique. They are 11 deep. They're defending at a very high level. It's just like, again, like that was that game 2 it keeps me up at night. I hate thinking about it. Boxing him out, no one boxed out shooter on that free throw. There's just a bunch of things.
Yeah, it's basic.
It's frustrating to think about again, but that's just playoff basketball. And again, I would not, panic, run it back.
Yeah. So now I saw this online the other day. I thought this was really interesting. So start bench cut. You got CP3, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd. So what's your take on those 3, and where would you rank them?
So it's very you to have a conversation about Steve Nash, the favorite player.
Of course.
All 3 of them are point guards who, are pretty much dying in a league now where a lot of point guards today are score first, and these guys, all 3 of them were distributors, orchestrators first type point guards, which I miss of. We don't have a lot of those nowadays in the league. Just the evolution of the game. If I were to rank those 3, I would start Chris Paul, I would bench Steve Nash, and I would cut Jason Kidd. And the reason for those 3 is, first off, Chris Paul is by far the best scorer of the 3. He's the best go get you a bucket guy from 3 in his prime, in his peak, and he's also the best defender. And he was all defense 11 times in his career. And he had multiple from the 3. He had the most top 5 finishes for MVP. So yes, Steve Nash did win controversially 2 MVP awards, but he was not in the conversation for MVP other than those 2 years. Whereas Chris Paul, for at least 5 times in his career, was top 5 in MVP finishing. So in that way, I think Chris Paul, you have to give it to him. He was a dynamic player. Some people, of course, he made 1 NBA Finals with the Suns. That was a great team. But in his prime, he was just clearly and by far the best point guard in the league. It wasn't even close. Great defender, smart player. People forget how great of a mid-range shooter he was. Like, he was a very, very good mid-range shooter. Steve Nash obviously orchestrated the 7 seconds or less offense, changed the way pick and roll is played in the league. league, evolutionized it, won those 2 MVP awards, stepped up in the playoffs a couple times. He gave it his all in those playoffs. Something that people forget about. People who are not NBA geeks like I don't really go back and see what happened in the 2005-2006 season, which was his second MVP. Was Amari Stoudemire was out for most of that year, and they were still the first seed in the league.
Wow.
And because he is just he was so efficient. Something that Steve Nash, this guy was shooting 50% from the field as a guard, which is unheard of. 43% from 3-point range. So he's so efficient. He led the league in assists, and he was a floor elevator. So everyone around him just played better because they were playing with Steve Nash, who got him easy shots. And that's how that team, without an Amari Stoudemire, their second best player and their best scorer, most of the season, they still finished with first seed in that season. So that's, people forget that about him. Again, other than those seasons, though, he was a good player. He just, he never made it to an NBA Finals. And he was just not a very good defender. Jason Kidd was also a pretty good player for a lot of his career. Finished second in MVP voting one year. That was with the New Jersey Nets, where he led them to back-to-back finals. People forget that he was the point guard on that team that went to back-to-back NBA Finals again in a really weak East in a time where the league was struggling with talent, but got swept by the Lakers in 4 the first year that they went, and then the second year they lost to the Spurs and Tim Duncan in 6. People forget that although he was old by the time they won that 2011 NBA championship, he was pretty good for them, and he was also a very decent defender. He was just never the offensive option for most of his career that Steve Nash or Chris Paul was, although he was a great defender as well and a really smart player. But that's how I'd rank those 3. They're all 3 top 10 point guards of all time in the league. But I think it's an interesting conversation for guys who played a similar game. But I think my way is right. I'm sure you have Steve Nash 1.
Yeah, I would say Nash 1, Paul 2, and then Kidd 3 for sure. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people obviously Kidd's one of the best point guards to ever play the game. But when we were growing up, we didn't really hear about him as much, or really his emphasis wasn't too big. More so Chris Paul, Deron Williams, all of those guys.
By the time we were old enough to watch basketball, he was pretty much out of the way. He was more definitely of a early 2000s player. For a time actually, I don't know if you know, Steve Nash and Jason Kidd played together.
Right. Yeah.
So which is always funny. But by the time 2011, he was on that team, and then played for the Knicks and the Thunder after that. And after that, he retired and immediately went into coaching. So we didn't get a lot of Jason Kidd, but he's one of Kyrie Irving's favorite players. So that tells you how good he was.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously you're known for your high basketball IQ. So what are your what?
So thank you.
Of course. So what are some of your favorite basketball takes that might be a little controversial or that people don't always agree with?
So one of my least favorite things when I'm talking to casuals, as I like to call it, casuals like to look at the scoring output, and then that determines who they think is good and who they think is not good. For example, something that really I disagree with is last year Jaylen Brown won Finals MVP, and you have some people. I don't like Boston. I don't like Jason Tatum, but you have some people that try to argue that Jaylen Brown is a better player than Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown is nowhere near as good as the player as Jason Tatum, and that's a very casual. This Kendrick Perkins take. Kendrick Perkins, I don't know how he has a job. I could do a way better job for ESPN than Kendrick Perkins can. We'll come out and say something about Jaylen Brown is a 1B, and it's just not true. Jason Tatum, if you go back and watch those games in last series, Jason Tatum is initiating the offense. He is playing the point guard for them. He is the centerpiece for that offense. And yes, Jaylen Brown scored more points, but it's just a whole different talent level compared to the two. Jason Tatum is closer to top 5 than Jaylen Brown is closer to top 10, top 15. I would say Jaylen Brown's probably a top 20-ish player, 25-ish player. And he's a great player, but he's not on the talent level of a Jason Tatum. So that's just an example of something that, annoys me about something, is that people just look at scoring output and that determines who they think is good. I think, that's my big one. It's you got to watch the games and watch not just who scores the basket, but who's initiating the offense, who's the defense centering their attention on, who made the hockey pass to get that guy open, because he knew if he'd made that one step right there, the defense would collapse. That means that guy's open on the wing. That means that guy's over in the corner. That guy can drive in the corner and score a basket. Those are things that I think people forget about. Who has a more, who's taking the primary defensive matchup? Those are things I think that people need to remember. And also another thing to remember about primary scores is that all the defensive attention is focused on them, which gives someone like a Jaylen Brown a better chance of scoring because he doesn't have the best defender on him. He has the secondary best defender on him. So those are things that I think people, forget sometimes with this stuff.
Yeah, I know one take that obviously the Jordan Bron, obviously.
Yeah.
Bron's your GOAT, Jordan's my GOAT, but I feel there's a lot of conversation with that. Obviously, you could throw Kobe in there. Obviously, Kobe's
my guy.
Kobe's your all-time GOAT.
But I'm also realistic about it. Yeah, the LeBron Jordan debates, I like to say I have LeBron as my 1A and Jordan as my 1B. I'm not mad if someone has Jordan as their GOAT, but from what I've seen, I think the longevity of LeBron's career, the fact that he's 40 years old and still a top 15 player in the league, the fact that, he's super durable, he's all around, it's just, there's not really comparison to Jordan and LeBron as a offensive centerpiece. Jordan was a score first guy. LeBron was a pass first guy who ended up being the number one, all-time leading scorer in NBA history. There's just a lot of things, the difficulty of the opponents, the fact that LeBron went to 9 straight NBA finals. It's just like there's just in almost every single statistical category, LeBron beats Jordan. But I'm not mad because the guy's 6-0 and was just so dominant in his era. If you want to have Jordan as your one, that's fine. For me, it's LeBron.
Thinking about like the most underrated like NBA players.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of people don't talk about Kemba Walker.
Okay.
Kemba Walker was so good.
He had some good seasons.
The Hornets have always been bad. They've always been bad. But Kemba Walker was completely underrated.
Kemba Walker was a good player. There's no doubt about it. He might have been one of those guys, good stats, bad team guy. But he did get injured, unfortunately. That kind of derailed his career. Signed with Boston. But he did lead that team, that Charlotte team, to one playoffs, and I think they've had it forever. I don't know the exact timeline of it, but I know they haven't made the playoffs since. And I know that one series against that Miami Heat team. I remember that. He's a good player. Yeah. I don't know. That's enough Kemba Walker commentary from the game.
Yeah. But yeah, and I also think Aaron Gordon is the greatest dunker of all time.
Aaron Gordon is, if you want to talk about an underrated player, Aaron Gordon is he's a stud. He's the perfect fit next to Nikola Jokic. He plays basketball the right way. He's so smart. He's great defensively. He had so many moments in this playoffs where I was just like, he's probably the second best player on the team at this point. I know Jamal Murray scores more points, is a perfect example, but Aaron Gordon has affects the winning of that team much more in a more significant way than I think Jamal Murray did in this playoff.
Yeah, for sure. And I loved Aaron Gordon, especially when he was on the Magic.
Yeah.
I thought he was awesome. So you recently won back-to-back intramural championships. So what was that experience like, and what made those wins so special?
Listen, me and Cello, we reunited this year after a year off from intramural. I was dealing with OChem and some other things, and I was like, we gotta bring it back. Gotta run it back. We finally won the championship twice this first semester and second semester, so that's a great experience. It's intramural basketball. I know it's not like we're 5-star athletes here, but I'm a competitive guy and I love playing basketball, so I like to win. So that was fun. I love the competitiveness of it. I love having an excuse to get my cardio in and having an excuse to just be with my boys. It was our senior year. Those are memories. Those shirts that we got are pretty cool. I like the shirts a lot, so I had fun with it. I liked being with the guys. I love basketball and I'm competitive, so I'm happy we won.
Yeah, and also too, you hit some big threes during those games as well.
And that's what I do, bro. I'm a shooter. I'm just a shooter. I love. One thing about my game I'm proud of is that I do basketball a little bit.
Yeah, true. So we've shared a lot of memories hooping together over the past 4 years. So what's your favorite memory from those times?
Honestly, I get a lot of joy sometimes seeing you get mad at other people. There will be times where you just get, because you're very like happy, jolly guy.
Yeah.
So sometimes in basketball, if someone doesn't does something wrong, because Celo's a good player, he'll yell at them in a basketball game, and that's always fun to see. I was a victim of some of those Celo tantrums, and sometimes I had to be like, why are you yelling at me? But it's fine. I like it. I like this dark side of Celo that comes out during basketball. It's fun to see. So I think that's something I love about it. The one game, this is a little selfish moment here, but the one game where we had 5 guys show up and I had 20, because I was hitting threes and you kept hitting me the ball, and I like that. I also like being your screen setter, because one thing about our team that annoys me is no one sets off ball screens.
Yeah, it's true.
I like getting Celo open because he's one of our best players, him and Marco. So we had to get him open instead of him just bringing up the ball and isoing and just getting double teamed. Just try to get the guys some space to work with here. So I love doing that so those are my favorite things about playing with Celo. Is my favorite memories are always the ones where I see him yelling.
Yeah.
I like seeing Celo yell. It's like so rare, but it's so fun to see.
Yeah. No, I mean I'll whether if it's pickup, if it's IM, or if it's something. If someone does something wrong, or if I think they do something wrong, I will definitely voice it, because I know a lot of times I'm very happy. I'm very hey, it's all right. But when it comes to basketball, I'm like, dude, come on, we have to win this game. But my favorite memory was when I think it was freshman year, me and you, I think 1-on-1, probably 5 games, and I think I beat you every time. And I was so confident. I was like, Toby, I'll bet you $20 that I'll beat you just using my right hand because I'm a lefty. And Toby was like, all right, deal. Like, I guarantee you that I'll win. And I was so confident going into this game. And then I remember we went to the IM gym, got some shots up. I was ready. Like, I was shooting with just my right hand. And Toby comes out and hits 6. He scored like 6 points in a matter of like 2 minutes. And I was like, oh no. So then I started driving. I think I scored a few points. And Toby kept on hitting threes. And eventually he won. I think the score was probably like 11-4 or 11-3. Toby starts running around the gym, and then he gets his phone. And he starts putting his phone in my face. I'm like, bro, like, you got to be kidding me. So that was definitely one of my favorite moments for sure because obviously I thought, I was way too cocky, and then Toby just proved me wrong, and then he started throwing it back in my face, which clearly I definitely deserved. But it was a great time. You were my first friend at JCU even before we stepped foot on campus. So what was it like graduating together after all this time, especially with the friend group that we've had since freshman year?
I'm a very sentimental guy. I look at life as like chapters in a book, and that graduation was really a closing of a very formative chapter for me personally in my life. My favorite thing about John Carroll was by far the people, just genuine, good quality friends that it holds a special place in my heart. So saying goodbye to it is hard, but you got to keep moving forward, man. And I'm excited to see where we all go in life from here. Just excited for the next chapter. And it's difficult. It's hard to say goodbye to something that you love, but when it's time to say goodbye, you gotta say goodbye.
Yeah, I know. And also too, like, the one thing I'm excited for is like our lives are like finally starting. Like, we're gonna have jobs. Like, people are finishing up school. Like, and eventually we're gonna make our own careers and have our own houses and go on vacations together. Like it's a whole new chapter, and I'm really excited for that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's definitely a little scary, but obviously I'm excited for this chapter. And the one thing that I know for sure is that our friendships are gonna last a lifetime. So I'm not worried about that at all.
Plenty to look forward to.
Always. So now, what's something that basketball has always taught you that you'll carry forever?
So, like I've said, I am a shooter. And when you play basketball long enough, when you miss a shot, what exactly you did wrong. Maybe my elbow was sticking out too much. Maybe I was shooting more from my palm than I am from my fingertip. Maybe I didn't keep my follow through long enough. Maybe my feet weren't set. There's just a bunch of things that maybe I didn't jump enough. I only shot with my arms and didn't use enough of my legs. Like, there are always things that you can point to in your head as to reason why a shot went left, went right, short, long, rimmed out, didn't get the right spin on it. There's always something you can point to. And then all you got to do is be consistent, work on it, and fix it. And that lesson from basketball, from shooting at basketball, can be applied anywhere in your life. There is something bothering you, then that is your brain telling you something is wrong, something you need to change. There's something wrong with your shot, then there's something wrong with the form, like the basis for your shot that you got to change. So applying that to your life is maybe, I'm a little bit too hefty and I want to slim down a little bit. There are some things you can do for that. You got to be consistent with it. Elbow will start looking more like a 90-degree angle. Same thing with just anything in life. So I think that's the biggest takeaway for me from basketball is that, you can apply like consistency, and minor changes can turn into you making 3 shots in a row, turn into you, making the changes that you want in your life. Another thing that it's taught me is, when I was an angry kid, I was a very angry kid. I was always very, very angry, which I'm sure friends who I played basketball back in the day can attest to. I overreact, I get a little angry, a little emotional playing basketball, and I think, learning to go up with the ups and downs of a basketball game when my shot's not going in, when I don't feel like I'm playing well, can also be applied to life. Is that there will always be ups and downs. I don't ride the emotional roller coaster. Be steady with it. Keep 2 hands on the wheel. Keep moving forward, and everything's gonna be okay.
Wow, beautiful, Tobe.
Beautiful, like poetry.
Yeah, serious, for real. So now this is the quote of the episode. So I will say a quote from a famous athlete, person, or somewhere online, and you'll talk about what this quote means to you, and then you'll tell the audience a quote that you live by every day.
Oh, put me on the spot here.
Right on the spot. So this is a famous quote from Jesse Owens. So it says, "Friendships born on the field of athletic strife are the real gold of competition. Awards become corroded, friends gather no dust."
Repeat that.
Friends born on the field of athletic strife are the real gold of competition. Awards become corroded, friends gather no dust.
I think it's a great quote because, again, I think it's something that can be applied to life. Is that, something, we're getting a little philosophical here. I love it.
Yeah, come on.
Something, that I personally struggle with, if I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable with the audience here, is my lust for materialistic things. I'm a very ambitious person. I want lots of money, and I want to be able to give that money out and to use it wisely and to, live a luxury type of lifestyle. But those things don't go in the grave. You want that trophy. You want where that trophy could be like an actual athletic trophy that you get from winning, or that trophy could be, like that 911 Porsche that I've always wanted, or that multi-million-dollar mansion that I've always wanted, or that really nice set of golf clubs that I can't afford right now, or whatever it is. Like, it's cool to have those things, but at the same time, time, like, are they really that valuable? Because what's valuable is those friendships, the people that you love. Those are the last. You're not when you're on your deathbed. You're not gonna be like, go bring me my keys to my nice car. You're gonna be like, where are my loved ones? I want to see them for the last time. Those things never go away. Those things are what life is really all about. What makes it worth living. So I think that's a beautiful.
Wow. Well said, Tobe. That was awesome, and I completely agree with you. So that'll do it for this episode from the Lions Cove podcast. I'm your host, Marcelo, and Toby, thank you again for hopping on the podcast. It was a pleasure having you, and this was awesome. It was a great episode, a lot of information, and obviously you're one of my best friends and my brother, and I love you for life, and I can't wait to see the big things that you do in the fall as well as for the next few years, and I'm very excited for you, and I'm very happy for you.
My brother, I really appreciate you having me on. I love talking hoops with you. I always love talking to you. I'm happy I was able to get on the pod. If you're not subscribed already, follow this guy's podcast. It's a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me, brother.
Yeah, so make sure you like, comment, share with friends and family, and we'll see you every Tuesday at noon. All right, peace.
Bye.